Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Tech Talk, Jaspersoft ETL architecture. This is our 10th Tech Talk. On the line with me today we have Ernesto Ongaro, who is our Senior Sales Engineer for EMEA. I am a marketing executive here, and we're just going to start the webinar, or the Tech Talk, sorry Ernesto, with a polling question. So I'm just going to put this polling question up here now, and I'll give you a minute to answer. So the question is, are you currently using Jaspersoft ETL? And first answer is yes. With Jaspersoft Talent, we use another ETL provider, or yes, we write our own scripts. And last, we have not using any ETL at all. So we have about 20% of the people have voted. So I'm just going to give this another 20 or 30 seconds to get everybody's vote in.
All right.
So just to let everybody know, as the Tech Talk takes place, if you have any questions, to submit them in the question box, and we'll take questions throughout and answer them as many as we can live on air today. And they don't just need to be ETL related, so we'll take questions on anything Jaspersoft related.
Or anything life related if you wanted to talk about
The winter.
life at all. The winter, yeah, the winter, it's a hard season for everyone. Yeah,
Okay.
we're talking about doing a Google Hangout. So, type something into the question box if you've used the Google Hangout during a presentation before and you thought it was a good idea or otherwise. Sorry, go ahead, Al.
I'm just going to close the poll and show everybody the results. So there you can see we have 32% using Jaspersoft ETL, 18 with another provider, or 23 with their own scripts, and then 27% not using ETL at all, Ernesto.
Okay, so it's a good mix of everyone, really.
Okay.
Great.
So I'll close the poll and hand over to Ernesto. And actually, Ernesto, we just have one quick question before we get underway.
Okay,
When is
sure.
the Pro version of Jaspersoft Studio coming out?
We're looking at launching that over the summer time frame, so a few more months and we'll have that launched. Thanks for that question. Probably somebody who listened to the Tech Talk before. All right, so we'll get going with today's topic. I've actually got a lot to cover for Jaspersoft ETL. So as the title says, Jaspersoft ETL architecture. We're not actually going to be spending a lot of time talking about designing ETL jobs. So if you're here to learn about the actual nuts and bolts of putting together a data integration job, this shows more around what happens to that ETL job once you've published it and you need to run it on a server. I'm going to show you the differences between the different editions of ETL. Now you'll still learn something about ETL as a whole. We're just not getting into ETL job design. I'm going to do we'll do another topic or another show on that in the future, but not today. So the agenda, we'll cover off some ETL basics. For those, we'll go pretty quickly through that based on the poll results. Most are actually probably already ETL experts. We'll talk about the different Jaspersoft ETL architectures, or editions. We'll talk about the architecture of Jaspersoft ETL, the installation parts. We'll cover off a little bit about the job designer, the admin center, and then we'll have Q&A. But like Alan said, throughout the show, you're more than welcome to answer or to ask your technical questions, and we can get them answered. So we had a small technical issue with GoToMeeting, and so it Alan, if there's ever anything wrong with the quality of my voice, just let me know. Periodically, I'll check the chat box.
Yeah,
So
that's no problem. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that. All right, so we'll start with ETL basics. So ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. There's other variations of that. So sometimes you just want an EL job. That's where you do a replica of your source system. So you don't do any transformations in the middle. You just extract data from source systems and you load them into another another system that can be just a copy of it. Then there's ELT, and that's where instead of extracting data, transforming it, and loading it, you're extracting data, you're loading it, and then you're using probably transactional SQL to do the transformations. So Jaspersoft ETL can cover that, all three of these scenarios, ETL, EL, and ELT. So why do people do ETL? What's the big deal here? What the four main reasons why people are doing ETL jobs. The first one would be speed. So source systems are optimized for writing small bits of data at once. That's traditionally called OLTP. The stuff that you do in Jaspersoft is called OLAP. Whether you use an OLAP engine or not, you're still doing OLAP, meaning you're not writing small bits of data at once, you're reading large chunks of data at once. And so since the source systems are optimized for OLTP, the OLAP system should be optimized in other ways, and that's one big reason to do ETL. If we were trying to do reporting and analytics from our kind of transactional systems, we would slow them down, we would affect performance on those. Second of all, reporting and analytics from source data is usually too complex. An engineer somewhere wrote that software with one specific goal in mind, and let's say it's an online store. He wrote that software to be able to have a guy log in, buy a pair of shoes, get it shipped somewhere. He never thought about, okay, what if there's, the CEO of the company wants to see if weather affects his sales, or whether a promotion that he ran in a newspaper helped the online sales or not. If we wanted to write queries against those source data, it's just too complicated. Other reasons why we might use ETL is joining multiple systems. So if you have two, different databases, you want to do some sort of a join between them. And another very, very interesting and important one is data quality. So taking machine data and turning it into business data. Types of transformations that you do with ETL. So selecting only columns you want, translating values, derived calculated values, multiple joining systems, aggregations, data quality. So there's a lot you can do to data to essentially turn it from information that lives in systems to business information. So just wanted to quickly go through that ETL basics part. I assume most of you probably know that already, just a little bit of review. So now we'll talk a little bit about the ETL versions. So as you guys probably know, Jaspersoft partners with Talon to provide data integration services. So the product, Jaspersoft ETL, can typically map back to a Talon product. We did that so that as a company, Jaspersoft can focus on what we do best, which is reporting, dashboarding, analytics. So
We just have
some of
a
you might be
question,
using...
Ernesto, just
Yeah.
on what are the latest versions of Jasper ETL?
Oh, that's actually a perfect question. So we lag behind usually a minor version from Talon. So Talon is currently shipping version 5.2, and Jaspersoft ETL is version 5.1.2. That's the commercial editions of Jaspersoft, the latest one. So if you're a paying customer and you're on Jaspersoft, let's say Jaspersoft ETL 4.2.3, you'd have to contact support and tell them that you'd like to get your license upgraded to 5.1.2, and then you can download the new software. That's what I'll be showing you today is 5.1.2. Now on the community side, we are using Jaspersoft ETL 5.0.2. What I typically tell community users is to just go with the community edition of Talon. There's some additional connectors that are available for Jaspersoft, but it's the free editions or commercial or community editions of Jaspersoft ETL don't really add anything that you can't get for free out on Talon. So then the commercial editions, of course, have commercial features, and you wouldn't be able to get them from Talon unless you paid them for it. So if you have a Jaspersoft subscription, then just use Jaspersoft ETL. So what's the biggest difference between community and commercial? So in the community edition, when you're finished assigning an ETL job, you export it as a jar file, and then you're on your own. You can take that jar file and you can run it manually, or you can schedule it to be ran, or you could include it in your web application and call it by some other method, some other trigger. But whenever there's scheduling and failures, etc., you're on your own. The commercial edition comes with a web application to help you manage all this. There's also some differences in the designer we'll cover in this next slide. So the designer, the studio, there's a few things that you get in the commercial editions, like change data capture. So change data capture is a way to have a publish-subscribe model between two databases. It'll only synchronize the differences between them. So if you have data that doesn't go back in time, like let's say I have, let's look at that example of the online shoe store. So I have an online shoe store, and every day I get new orders, and those orders have to be copied over to my reporting database. In my ETL job, I can have some simple logic, like the last order ID is the one that I'm going to sync up until. So, the next day's job starts where the last day's job ended. And that's fine, but what happens if, somebody returns a pair of shoes, like they had an order where they ordered 15 pairs of shoes, 2 pairs of shoes were returned. We don't want to recognize that as revenue, or we want to just, edit that order, whatever. Change data capture would let you do that without having to kind of sync over all the data every day. Data viewer, it's just something that you can use to preview data as it flows through your ETL jobs. You get the versioning and the shared repository, which comes in the studio as well, and you get metadata wizards for most of the connectors. So those are the differences between the commercial and the community editions of Jaspersoft ETL. So now we move to the fun part. We're going to move to the architecture part. Lots of moving pieces there. So this This comes directly from Talon. It shows this very complicated looking architecture where you have all these different servers doing all these different things. Let's keep it simple. Let's start up here with the TIS Studio. If you're using the community editions or the what we used to call the professional editions of Jaspersoft, you will stay within TIS Studio. There is no other pieces to the ETL system. If you have what we used to call Jaspersoft ETL Enterprise and what we now call Jaspersoft ETL, you have all this here as well. So the studio is the Eclipse-based designer where you design the jobs. You can publish those jobs to the Talon Administration Center. There's a little tool called Command Line, which I'll show you very shortly. What happens here is there's another link to a Subversion server where the studio checks in the job automatically through Subversion. They're checked out over here on Talon Admin Center, or at least the metadata around them is checked out. There is a small database not dissimilar to Jaspersoft's repository database where the users are kept. We'll talk about that during installation. Then you have job servers. This is where the execution of the jobs is actually going to be done. So they'll actually they'll get a binary that's compiled on the command line, published out to the job server. And yeah, so that's the architecture. What's funny is you can actually have, like, I have all this running on my laptop right now. So you don't need to have separate, you know, database servers, Subversion. Well, Subversion is actually hosted for me. So just be aware of that.
We actually just have a question,
And this
Ernesto.
slide talks about the...
Yeah, the question just came in there, and it's I'm trying to connect to a remote MySQL database, and they're getting this error: connection failure. You must change the database settings. And then I'll just post a bit of code. It's java.lang class not found exception. I'll just put this in the chat box too.
Yeah, put it in the chat box and I'll check it out. By the way, you guys that are following along, you're welcome to get the slides from this URL that you see on my screen, rvl.io. I'm not seeing in the chat the message. Oh, there we go. So, connecting to MySQL database, java.lang class not found exception, com.mysql.jdbc.driver. Okay. Yeah, so what you're running into, that's a good question. I think I've actually ran into that before. So since Oracle took hold of the MySQL project, distributing the JDBC driver for connecting to a Microsoft SQL database is not allowed anymore under certain conditions only. And so that's not distributed with Talon or Jaspersoft anymore. So what you have to do is you have to add that driver to your class path, or you can use the open source MySQL driver. So I'll just open up Jaspersoft ETL, and if I go over to databases, and let's see, MySQL. I think here I can choose which driver to use. How do I do that? Well, I know at least in the metadata, if I do a new connection, and I choose the database type, they're going to use that driver. I forget how to change the driver. You could use the generic driver, but there's an open source edition of the MySQL driver, I think. But so what I would do is I would just go to Oracle and search for MySQL JDBC driver and add it to the class path of Talend. So I think if you actually, good question on how to do that. So I'll actually, maybe later if we get a little bit more time during the demo, I'll show how you might add that in. Okay, so these are the pieces laid out into a slide. So you have the studio, which you just saw. You have the admin center, which is a J2EE web application like Jaspersoft to run your jobs on. You have an SVN server, and then you have the job servers. Let's look at installation. If you use Jaspersoft ETL, professional or enterprise edition before, there wasn't an installer for it. So now there is an installer. It's optional. You can still get each component separate. And it might make sense for most installations to do a separate install because the one computer is going to be the guy who designs it, another computer has the admin center. This is like an all-in-one bundled installer. So it comes with Tomcat, H2, database server, the job server, command line, and job server. Or you can download all these separately from the support portal. I have a little link here of a Evernote document I made with just some installation notes. And so here's the installer screen. So like you get to pick what you want to install. The Subversion repository is only for Linux computers. I'll just kind of go through the screens. I chose server. I told it which database to use. So like if you're using Jaspersoft already on this computer, you can use the Postgres database that we have. Just add a database called Talend to it. I actually told it that I have my own Tomcat installation. So see here, I just pointed it right to where the Tomcat server of Jaspersoft was installed. Told it what ports we're using. I told it I have an existing SVN server. And I was using something called Unfuddle, which is a hosted Subversion repository. And that's really it. I hit next, and it did a pretty good job of configuring everything how I wanted it. So we'll go through how to launch. Let's see, installation. Okay, so now we get to the part where I'm going to do the demonstration of Jaspersoft ETL. So we'll look at the job designer, starting the job server in the command line. We'll look at job workflows, how to publish those. All right. And don't forget, guys, if you have questions, just keep them coming. It keeps the show interactive. They don't have to be about ETL. They can be about iReport or Jasperreport server as well, so no worries. Okay, so let's start in the command line. All right, so I installed Jaspersoft ETL on my Mac here. Let's see, applications and Talon 5.12. So what I want to do is I want to start the command line in the job server. So I'll go into the command line. I think I'm actually running it already. I actually want to enable, I want to enable some sort of debugging. So you can edit these shell scripts and we can, like the last line there, we can disable this part at the end there. See where it says dev null. If you take all that stuff out, it's gonna spit out all the errors to the console. So I found that important when I was setting up my server. Sorry, it takes a while to get to the end, and I forget the how to get to the end in Vim. All right, and so save that, and I'm going to start the command line. So you see it there, starting up command line application. If I wouldn't have taken out those two lines, then this would have, it would have just ran in the background. Okay, so I want to start up the job server as well. So I'll stop it because I do believe it's running. And this is the same thing here. So you see that I have, it's being all piped into dev null. And so I'll just take all that out. I guess all it really does is call another script anyways. Okay, the address is already in use for the Talon job server. Okay, so it looks like I am running it, so I'm just going to kill that real fast. Okay, cool. So we're now running a job server and we're running the command line. So that was just some stuff that I had to do ahead of time. So I will actually log out. So once you install Jaspersoft ETL into Tomcat, so I'm running this on the same Tomcat install that I have Jaspersoft, which is cool. You'll have to go to this database config page for those of you that haven't ever set this up. And here you get to set up how to connect, which database to connect to. So I could use Oracle or Postgres here if I wanted to, and send it over to Postgres. I have to set my license here. Just make sure you see all OKs. It's actually pretty good at telling you what you haven't done. Once that's set up, we'll go to the login page. And you'll want to go to configuration. And I'll just show you a few things here. Now, I don't have this fully configured, so you see there's a lot to do here. Like I don't have auditing enabled. I need to tell it, you know, a path that it can write to, so I can just put in temp. They'll probably be happy. Yeah, now it's happy because it can write to the temp folder. So the mandatory bits, and it was nice because the installer actually did all this for me. Command line, for example, you tell it where to find the command line, and this part's important, the user component path. If you have a secondary command line, you do it there. The database, you configure it in the other screen. I'm going to skip over the stuff that's not essential, like ESB is different. Log4j, I actually found this. For those of you that might be having any kind of issues with deploying a job or anything like that, change this to debug and then check out this file, and it starts to write all kinds of things to the log. Make sure you put it back to warning because it's very verbose. It'll write a lot to it. What else did I have to do here? So Subversion. I actually use Google Code to host Subversion for me. I don't care that the world can see it because I don't have anything too interesting on here. You'll have to run your own Subversion server. And that's really about it for configuration. So you just go through and you make sure that all the stuff is checked green. Now you'll have a video of this for those that kind of want to follow along with your own installations. We'll send out a video. It'll be on YouTube, and you can watch it later and slow it down as needed.
We just have a question. What is Drule's governor?
Oh, that's a great question. So you probably see it here, Drules, and then you see it here, Drules. Drules is it comes from JBoss. It's a business, I get this wrong all the time, BRMS, I believe, Business Rule Management System. So it's a way to trigger things in their business rules management system. So when an ETL job finishes, you can sort of tell a business process manager that that part of that is finished. So you can read more about it on JBoss. There's an open source edition to that as well as a paid edition. So it's very much to tie all this into actual business rules and processes. All right, so we'll push forward with the demonstration. So this is all configured. The next thing that I actually did as well is to configure a job server. So you do that just by adding a host name. So I see that you know, my host server is up. If I turn it off, here, so I'm killing the job server. You'll see it die off here shortly. See, and it's down. So if I configured a bunch of these, then the system, you'd be able to tell it which one to publish to. So I'll start that back up. And hopefully this will revive. Yep. Okay. So if I go back to the web application, I'm going to well, let's close this job. We'll create a new job from scratch. Give it just a sec. All right, so I'm going to start a new job design. Now, for those of you using Community Edition ETL, you probably know this pretty well. So we'll go and we'll call it Tech Talk 10 job, version 0.1. That's good, and I hit finish. Now, what's interesting is all this is being checked into Subversion in the background. Like, since I'm using Google Code, oh no, I don't remember my project. Yeah, tester. So if I go to source and I go to browse, I can actually see what's happening kind of live. Let's see, changes. I can see just moments ago a new job called TT10 job was created. So it's cool because all this is like being saved somewhere else. now I'm going to create an ETL job, and this is, remember, like I said, we're not going to spend a lot of time actually building ETL jobs. We'll do a separate topic for that. I will just, I'm going to do a very silly job. We'll do chronometer start, chronometer stop. And we'll tell this one, and we'll run the job. All right, so this is really not an ETL job. This is measuring how long it takes to run an empty job. That's okay. It took 1 millisecond from the start and the end of this. Not bad, actually. I was expecting to get a lot more overhead up of the job, so that's pretty cool. All right, and that's it. So let's say the job designer guy, he's happy. He's used this thing to create a job successfully, or a series of jobs. He can then close it. He can also also do, if I do edit job, is it? No, not that one. I can bump up the version. Like, let's say I'm happy with that version, and I can go to production with that version. And meanwhile, I want to work on version 0.2 of it. I can bump up the version, and then it'll, later on I can open up a different another version of it. So that's pretty neat. So let's switch over to the web application now and see what that looks like here. So, oh, by the way, one thing, the default user that comes with the system, he's only an administrator. So if you log in and you only see half of the stuff here, like you don't see dashboard conductor, it's because you don't have sufficient permissions, or you don't have sufficient roles. So I added a bunch of roles. I created a new project here, ETL demonstration. And now I can go over to the job conductor, and I can add a new job. So I go here on the left-hand side. We'll call it Tech Talk 10 job, just for fun. I select a job, so I click here. Like I said, this is all working from Subversion. So Google SVN servers are a little bit slow. So when you're running your own, I found that to be a little faster. This is interesting. So I selected the job, and then I can either run the latest version, which means anytime it changes, it'll recompile it and all that. Or I can pick a specific version. I want to stick to version 0.1. Fills all that out for you. Now I choose an execution server. I can choose whether I want to enable or disable statistics, and what happens on the unavailable job server. So maybe I want to restart the task if it's if the job server's unavailable. Probably the most sane thing to do would be just to wait. So once I hit save there, we'll see that the job is ready to generate. So generation is actually done by command line. So when I push generate here, it starts going, and I can actually, if I switch over to the terminal, we would get any kind of log data here. Yeah, so I actually get I got a stack trace about Groovy. Oops, I'm getting a lot of errors here. So something happened with my with my installation. So that's why I wanted to show you guys how you get the stack traces in the terminal. But something's gone horribly wrong here because it's giving me a lot of different. It seems like initializing everything, although after all those errors, I'm still getting ready to deploy, so I can deploy it, which means it's going to take it from my command line and it's going to put it onto the Talon job server. So we would get any kind of error there, and now it says ready to run. So I can actually just run the application for the selected task, or I can add a trigger. So I'll add a simple trigger here. So simple would be once a week, things like that. Cron trigger would be more based on calendar dates. File trigger is an interesting one. It says when a file appears in a folder, then run the job. And of course, there's an API that you can call from another application to run these jobs. Execution plan is about kind of linking a bunch of jobs together and executing them. You also get this dashboard. At the moment, I don't have it configured. You actually have to point it to a database where it's going to save statistics about each one of your jobs. So you want to do that in production. You also want to configure auditing in production, just so that you see like when your jobs were ran and by who. So you get that as well. So I could hit start audit. It would tell me all the audit data for this project. So I think that's really what I wanted to show for Jaspersoft ETL. So we've got about 12 minutes left on this tech talk. So I know I flew through a lot of stuff, but it's meant to just give you a good overview of the architecture of ETL and hopefully some common kind of troubleshooting and installation steps. So great. Alan, I don't know if there's any questions kind of queued up.
Yeah, there's one or two here. I think you may have covered them already. So the first one I'll just read out is, what is the upgrade process from one version to another?
Oh, good question. So what I covered earlier was the licensing. From a licensing perspective, well, first of all, the community editions, there is no license, so forget that. But the commercial editions, there is a license. And you can't just say, oh, I'm on ETL version 4 and I want to upgrade to version 5. I'm just going to use the same license. Unfortunately, we have to upgrade your license for you. Now, it doesn't cost you anything as a paying Jaspersoft customer, but it is something you can't use both versions. It's one or the other. And then the upgrade process, it's like if you have the Subversion server, there's actually in the installation guide of Jaspersoft ETL, there's the whole steps. It's a bit of a job to go from one version to another, but it is worth it. I've found the newer versions of ETL to be very stable, and I found some of the new features to be really good, like the big data connectors that we've added. We continue to add connectors to the ETL system and continue to work on stability and things like that. So it is worth it to upgrade, even though it is a bit of a job. And now in the newer versions, if I go to configuration, there is this software update part here, and I believe that the Eclipse-based Studio can update itself. So I've never tried it myself, but there's a way where it'll just update itself without having to download the application and all that stuff. So I think that's covered in the install guide as well. But that's a great question, though. Thanks. And then was there one more question now?
Someone had just asked where they can find the previous recordings, so I'm actually going to put that into the chat box now and send to everybody. So every week after the Tech Talk is taking place, we upload onto the registration page on our own website and then onto the Jaspersoft playlist on YouTube. So everything is posted there. And then, Ernest, we just had one last question, and again, I think you might have covered this. What are the integrations with Jaspersoft and ETL?
Oh, okay, sure. So in the studio, you'll notice, let me just open up our little job again. In Jaspersoft Studio, you'll notice under Big Business Intelligence, Jasper, there's T-Jasper output and T-Jasper output exec. Now, that's just for running JRXML files. It's not connected to the server. The good news is that there's a component out in the Forge. So let me see if I can change the view. Well, maybe I don't have time to install it here. What I'll do is I'll point you to a small blog post that I wrote. Let's see. So there's two components that are available that we've developed just as triggers from ETL. The first one's this one, and Al, what I'll do is I'll put these links in the chat box, and then you can distribute those. So the first one's called T-Jasper OLAP Cache. This one's interesting. You can, after you load your data warehouse, you can flush the OLAP cache of Jasper server. And then the other one is called T-Jasper Server Exec, and I have another kind of example on my blog about that. Where did it go? Yeah, the other component we have is called T-Jasper Server Exec, and what it does is it lets you execute reports from Talend on Jasper. So there's about a 10-minute video of how that works, and I used it for report bursting. And so the URL of this one is, they should be getting the chat box here shortly. But yeah, that was a good question. Thanks to whoever asked that one. Okay, so some upcoming topics for you guys. So there's next week is a really good one. So we have one of our original architects coming on the show to talk to you about OLAP versus domains. So that's going to be 7 hours ahead.
It'll be at 5 p.m. GMT.
Right, because we haven't switched over daylight savings. So yeah, 5 p.m. on March 19, tune in for that one. March 26th, Linux installation tips, that'll be at the same time zone, so 10 a.m. GMT.
We just have one more question that came in, Ernesto.
Okay.
We've a little bit more time. And the question is, what elements do I need to create in Jasper Analysis Workbench in order to create a cube? I've added a schema, dimensions, measures, and hierarchies, but I'm still blocked from creating a cube.
Okay. So unfortunately, I don't have the Workbench installer. Okay, so would you send that question so I can look at it written down, send it over to me?
Yeah, no problem. There you go.
All right, thanks. So he's trying to create a cube. He's got a schema, dimensions, measures, hierarchies. It's, typically it'll tell you there's the big check box in Jaspersoft Workbench. When you hit that button, look at the little status bar. It'll tell you cubes must contain something, or you must define a foreign key, or you must. So it's typically pretty good at telling you why it can't proceed. So hope that helps. I would need to look at it to really. It sounds like they're really close. You've got dimensions, you've got measures and hierarchies under those dimensions. So you're close. And that's it. This is the link to get to sign up for future Tech Talks. Now, if you're on this Tech Talk, then you've probably already found this page. But it's got all the previous topics as well, and it's got the upcoming ones. So Alan and everybody else that attended today, thank you so much. And thanks for all the great questions and your participation, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.